If the Rams could have a draft like they had in 1975, from the studios of the Ram Cave, this is RamView.
It's hot out there. Let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, the February 19th, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues, get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. We made it. We're here. I am so happy to be here. I can't prevent us from blinking out or a lot of the crackle pop in my mic. The weather's been crazy. Not crazy, just consistent, just wet. I love it, but it does kind of wreak havoc sometimes with the broadcasting. So thank you guys for clicking on and for being here. And for those that are going to click on later, and thank you for your patience. Yeah, I brought up the 75 draft of the Rams. I'm going to bring that up later. We're going to talk about this year's draft. We're going to talk about some other things. But just before we get there, I wanted to bring this up. I'm always amazed that the same people who whine and complain about a low-scoring baseball game or a football game that is a defensive struggle, they complain about it, how football is boring if there's not a lot of scoring, or we need more home runs. We foolishly put the DH in the National League. But they won't say a word about the NBA All-Star Game, which is just hideous. It is the worst of all the All-Star games. There was this moment, if you grew up in LA when you were a kid, when Chick Hearn, who would do the simulcast, live radio, live TV at the same time, and Chick Hearn, where a game was getting out of hand, and he would say, and it's garbage time at the Forum. And you knew that, CJ Kupek was getting into the game, right? Kevin McKenna was getting into the game. Larry Spriggs was getting into the game. And it was just garbage time. It was just, let's run out the clock. Let's let some guys get some last few shots in, and then the game is over. But that would come in the fourth quarter, right? That would come after Golden State or Rick Barry hit a bomb and they were up by 12 with like 30 seconds to play or something, right? But for the NBA All-Star Game, it's garbage time from the moment of tip-off, right? And if I was in the league, I wouldn't even want to play in it. It's just embarrassing. Why do you want to go out there? Why would you want to go out there? You're making 50 mil anyway. You're making 30 to 35 rocks anyway. Why would you want to go out there? I just wouldn't want to embarrass myself with that horrible product they put out there. It might cost you some money, but sometimes you have to give up the dough to hold on to your integrity. And the NBA has no integrity as long as it keeps up this joke of an all-star game. And then the players get Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off before the league resumes on Thursday. Who's insulted by this? It insults the NBA fans, right? And I'm not even an NBA fan anymore, but they could give a rip about their fans by putting out this kind of a product, and it shows the disdain of the players. And someone was even saying, well, maybe we ought to make a financial incentive for them. And that's kind of disgusting, right? That's why that in-season tournament was a joke. And that's why I really don't care when the pundits say, well, it was a low-scoring game and it was boring. It was boring for 3 quarters, and then the Super Bowl got good. Super Bowl 53 was one of the most boring Super Bowls of all time. You know what? The KBM says that. The casual fan says that. The sports bar fan says that. But the people who really know the game, that love the game, well, you can find truth and you can find strategy and you can find competition in any aspect of the game when it's being played the way they play professional football. NBA doesn't have that. And unfortunately, Major League Baseball has pitch counts and got rid of complete games and all those things that really made a game interesting as you invested in it. It's going that way as well. And that's why football gets 120 million viewers for its Super Bowl, and the NBA gets 1 million between its two top league draws, Boston and Golden State. So love the NFL. It's got a lot of problems. There'd be good if a good part of the NFL kind of died and kind of is reborn because sometimes it goes off a cliff. But as far as the action and the game itself, football is the best. Okay, talking Rams stuff here. I want to stay in my lane and talking Rams stuff here. We've mentioned things. I haven't really broken down the room for the tight ends, the O-line, but we've talked about these positions, right? We've talked about them and in terms of what are the Rams going to do? Draft, free agency, salary cap cuts, and really everything for the Rams this offseason kind of starts and ends with maybe not ends, but it starts with Kevin Dotson, right? And are they going to pay him his dough? If they wanted to franchise tag him, which some people have said, that would be 19 rocks. And I would expect them to make some other moves to free up more cap space if they gave him just 19 rocks for one season. But then again, you're not on the hook if this was an aberration. Remember how cheap the Rams got Kevin Dotson from the Steelers. Now, either that was a major botch job by an organization that generally, and I am loath to give Steeler fan Rob in Missouri any credit, but that's an organization that kind of knows its business, and they gave up on Kevin Dotson. And did the Rams get that one contract year out of him, or is there something more down the road? So that'll be an interesting question they have to answer. I've also spoken out against cutting Noteboom and Brian Allen because Stafford's the priority, and I want backup help, right? But I get it. I can understand why the Rams would move on, especially from Allen. Noteboom's contract only saves you $5 million if you cut him, but Brian Allen is a more significant savings per what you would have to pay him dead cap. And of course, that all depends on what the Rams do in the draft, what their plans are for Steve Avila, and what they see going forward. But I just want anything that's going to add depth to that offensive line because I don't want to live through another 2022. And I don't want to hear the lazy KBM, the lazy pundits talk about, well, the bill came due. The bill never came due for the Rams. A busted offensive line came due for the Rams that was unprecedented in the modern era in 2022. And I can't stand hearing about how all the blank them picks and all the moves they made, that bill came due. 2022 was an aberration. It's something no team in the modern NFL has ever dealt with. When you're hiring guys that used to work at Home Depot and the police academy, and I'm not talking maybe they're the police academy movies, but you're putting them on the offensive line to protect your quarterback. There's been nothing like it. So my thing is protect your quarterback and give him targets. Also, the tight ends are interesting because of Higbee's injury. Davis Allen steps in. Bryson Hopkins is likely gone. And I think there's going to be a lot to determine there in terms of the tight end room, in terms of the draft, where they go high or low. It's probably going to depend on Hunter Long, right? What's his rehab like right now? I think that'll determine where they take a tight end in the draft. And with that said, I want to lead into this. Loyal RamView follower Dano 3614, I'm just going to call him Dano, book him Dano, like that, sent me his mock draft. He actually posted it on Friday's show in the comments box right here on YouTube. And I picked it up, took it out, and I'm going to add it to the posting of this to my website at joetarosian.com. Just scroll past the link to the show and you'll see Dano's mock draft. But I'm going to go over it right now because he made some moves here that, in terms of the draft, that speak to some of the Rams' issues. And I thought it was a pretty good draft considering he didn't do any trades. It's before the free agency period begins, and so it was a pretty solid one. And so I want to read through that right now. He did 11 picks, 19th overall. He took Troy Fontanatu. He's the left tackle out of Washington. Played a lot of games, a lot of snaps, 6'4", 317. And if he is what he looks like in college, I love that pick. I'm all down with that pick. Good job, Dano, on that one. At 52 in the second round, he took Edgerrin Cooper, an off-ball linebacker, 6'3", 230. Struggles. He's a little average against the pass. His stock is rising. He's a good off-ball linebacker, great against the run. At number 83, he took this little hybrid. He's being listed by the scouts as an edge. His name is Brandon Dorless, but he played with his hand in the dirt a little bit in Oregon, quite a bit, and he feels like one of those guys. He's 6'3", 290, but I'm for anything that puts a Bubba on the line. I don't know if he's got the explosion to stay on the edge in the NFL. We'll see, but that's not a bad draft pick. At number 100, this is the comp pick that we get for Raheem Morris, and that could be flexible. Could it be 104, 103, 102 when the official draft order comes out? But I don't know how to pronounce this name, but it's a defensive lineman out of Clemson. His name is Ruke Ohoro, 6'4", 290, classic B-cap run stuffer. He can easily, with that 6'4" frame, go up to 3 spins, and I love it. I love depth along the defensive front. And then at 153, as we get into the 5th round, Dano found Tyke Smith, a safety out of Georgia, kind of a hidden gem, 5'10", 195. I think that hurts him a little bit, but he plays a lot of the star position, the slot position. And to me, just his numbers say he's probably a lot of Quentin Lake-like, and we love those guys. So I thought that was one pick that I really loved that came into my radar. And so I want to thank Dano for that. And that's what this is all about, is that it raises awareness for your draft board, right? I hate being surprised. I don't have to know everything about a player, but I hate being surprised, not knowing where they came from and a little bit of background on them. And that's what I appreciate about this mock draft by Dano. 154, the very next pick, he has the Rams taking Jalen Simpson out of Auburn. He's 6'1", 178, played a lot of slot. He's listed as a corner, but he played a lot of slot and deep coverage for the Tigers. At number 177, I like this pick. He took Delmar Glaze, 6'5", 328, tackle, played left tackle, junior redshirt at Maryland. And he struggled against Michigan, but he shined against Ohio State in that Big Ten schedule. And again, he's another guy, was not on my radar. Thank you, Dano. Looked really good. Number 191, he had the Rams taking Jordan Travis. Not my guy necessarily. I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he's a starter. I'm just not a real Jordan Travis fan. I could be wrong, but we'll see. At number 212, this one was an interesting pick. Edge rusher out of Washington State, Brennan Jackson, 6'4", 264. He shined in the Pac-12. The last 3 seasons, he's amassed 20 sacks. And that one's an interesting pick. At 212, if Brennan Jackson's there, I do like this one. And this is another one that really interests me. Out of Colorado State at 217, Dallin Holker, 6'5", 235, had 64 catches this last year with the Colorado State Rams. Great senior year. And, of course, if you're going to play for Sean McVay, you better block. And his blocking was listed as just a little bit above average. But I thought for a depth piece, knowing that Bryson Perkins is moving on, even if Hunter Long is healthy, and we don't know when Higbee's going to be back, I thought that was a good selection by Dano. And then the one that I'll always dance with is he drafted at 218 Joshua Carter out of Stanford. This guy's 6'2", 208, so he's not some wimpy little kicker, but he kicked for 3 seasons at Stanford, and he only had 2 misses inside the 50 and only 1 missed extra point. After the season the Rams had, if they can get a guy like that, I'm not worried about him bombing from 55. Just hit the inside the 50 kicks, and I like that kick. Actually, I saw this on Dano's mock draft that he sent to us, and then I saw another draft database thing that listed Joshua Carter going to the Rams that was published after Dano's. So Dano is ahead of the curve. So good job, Dano, and we'll continue on from there around the NFL and other places. Not a whole lot right now, but the franchise tag window is open for teams to tag players for the 2024 season. And when subject came up about Kevin Dotson, every position is slotted on average of what you earn, right? The Rams haven't tagged anybody since they tagged LaMarcus Joyner in 2018. If you were going to tag your quarterback, you would have to pay him 36 rocks. If you're going to tag your off-ball linebacker, 22. If you're going to attack your defensive tackle, that's 20 million. And then wide receiver, that's another 20 mil. Edge, 20 mil. O-line, 19.9 for one season. That would be what would cost Kevin Dotson, us to keep Kevin Dotson for 1 year as on a franchise tag. I don't see that necessarily unless there were some other moves. Cornerback, 18. Safety, 16. We're not keeping Jordan Fuller, guys. We're not going to franchise tag Jordan Fuller. Tight end, 12. Kicker, punter, 5.6. But this was the interesting one that we all should be aware of in terms of the world we're in now. Think about how, was it Josh Jacobs, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley, everyone was, even Nick Chubb, they were all talking about, running backs getting their fair share and getting what they deserve. Of course, Eckler had a bad year. Josh Jacobs didn't really catch fire this year. Saquon Barkley, to me, looked very ordinary. Of course, the Giants were struggling all year. But the franchise tag rate, if you franchise tag a running back, 11.3 rocks. That's all they're worth. And that just kind of tells you where the NFL values running backs nowadays. Just something to think about going forward. Players that are likely to get franchise tagged that maybe the Rams might have some interest in. This is just speculation. This isn't, I've read something somewhere. We know about Brian Burns in Carolina, and we know about Josh Allen in Jacksonville. We've talked about L'Jarius Sneed in Kansas City, but there's also T. Higgins in Cincy. A lot of folks have said he would be a great addition to the Rams. And then Jalen Johnson, the cornerback from Chicago. There was a lot of interest. He didn't look bad. I kind of like L'Jarius Sneed better, but he's another guy that's talked about he can get franchise tagged. And the interesting name on the interior, Justin Matabuke, the DT from the Ravens, and he's a free agent this year. And he doesn't want to get franchise tagged, but if he were to get franchise tagged, he would be worth 20.9 rocks. And just something to think about as we talk about free agency. You talk about what you want to do. What do you value? Well, I want to keep Matthew Stafford upright, but experienced edge rusher is going to cost something, right? I mean, we're not just talking about bringing in who was it? Was it Brandon Ingram, Melvin Ingram, Brandon? I get them confused. The one that was with it wasn't on my notes here. The one was the Chargers. Do you just want to bring in some guy? Do you want to bring in a Justin Houston? Do you just want to bring in one of these guys, a JD Von Clowney? Do you want to bring in one of these guys that's going to cost nothing, but probably not give you much? Or do you want to spend some money? And so it is an interesting place where the Rams are at in this regard. Okay. My name is Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years, one of the founding members at Mid-Valley Sports. I've worked at various places through the years, Mid-Valley News, strung for several newspapers, had some websites I worked with. And now I do RamView, thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law and Temple City Auto. So if you could support those guys, please do. And then I write books. My books are available on Amazon. I've written 2 high school football novels, and I've written a third one. It's not a high school novel. It's called Game Day in the Ram Cave, and it's a fictional account of what it's like when friends get together to watch an NFC title game with the Rams, and how they want certain people with them and certain people not there. And so I'm hopefully to get that out soon this spring. There was some incidents that came up that kind of held back the publishing of that. And so you can check that out all on Amazon. Just type in my name. And then of course, I do those things and RamView because it keeps me employed in my day job as I pastor a small church in Burbank Faith Nazarene. And you can find us right here on YouTube at Burbank Faith Virtual, and of course, burbankfaithvirtual.com and all over social media. So you can check us out there. All right, cool. Really happy we're on the air, guys. Thanks for being with me. Mr. Burns is throwing questions at me. Okay. Tim Burns, I've seen Bo Nix at 19, but I would keep Oregon's center Powers Johnson and keep Stafford upright before another quarterback we won't use for 4 years. Absolutely. Absolutely. Powers Johnson is a guy that I knew about, but because a lot of people are talking about him, guys like you, Tim Burns. Yeah. In fact, the mock draft that I'm kind of looking at today, one that was published by Rams Wire, has Powers Johnson going at number 20 right after the Rams' 19th pick. Now, I wouldn't reach for a quarterback in the first round. I don't think I'd reach for a quarterback in the first 100. Our window is open. Do what you can to keep Wentz. Do what you can to bring in a veteran, but I would not waste first 100 capital on a quarterback that is not going to play and that is not going to give us much if Stafford goes down for 2 or 3 weeks. So fully there with you, Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns, 4 compensatory picks. Use them all on offensive line, hidden gems. I'm right there with you again. One of the things that I'm big on is if you got multiple picks in the first 100, always, and then again, always take some kind of offensive lineman and keep the depth built up there. Tim Burns again, rewatched the Super Bowl. An announcer was gushing on how American it is Tay was chugging a beer. I feel Swifty Hex coming, but the guy was practically having a moment over it. So NFL is trying too hard. Hey, as long as Taylor Swift doesn't start dating Davis Allen, we're going to be good, right? We'll be good. Just don't start dating Davis Allen. Seeing DeJean and many mocks at 19 in our spot. I am liking an NFL week 1 starter in our secondary. It's a priority. And this guy has the speed and instincts, jumps off the film. Yeah, you know what? But I've seen Cooper DeJean. He's the cornerback out of Iowa. I've seen him in the top 10. I've seen him in the back of the first round. It's weird how he keeps bookending all over, the first round. It's going to be interesting as we get through the combine and other evaluations and pro days to see where guys like that end up. Bill, do we need an upgrade on Ronnie Rivers? I hate to say it, but yeah, I like Ronnie Rivers. I like Ronnie Rivers a lot. But yeah, I think we need to find a running back. I don't think we need to do it in the first 100. But yeah, I would. And I don't think there's really first 100 talent in running backs this year. And I would find another guy in the 4th, 5th round, in that 153, 154, starting there. But yeah, I definitely think the Rams should take another running back. I don't know if Royce Freeman's a long-term option. We don't know what Zach Evans. We don't know what he's going to become. But hey, it's not going to scare Ronnie Rivers. That guy just keeps balling. And that guy was 6th on the depth chart last year, ended up number 2. So yeah, I think we need to add to that, Bill. Kenneth Wright, I say we sign an edge rusher through free agency, draft an O-lineman, and a kicker for sure. Yes, Kenneth Wright, you're absolutely right on that. You'll love Dano's draft, where he has us taking the Cardi kid out of Stanford with the 218th pick. I'll just ask you, Kenneth Wright, where do we go for a corner in that? I'm for the edge rusher in free agency, and I'm always for an offensive lineman in the first 100. But where do we target a corner? Do we target a corner after an offensive lineman? Just curious to your opinion on that. Bill, we should upgrade on Robinson at wide receiver. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in the back part of the show. Is Demarcus Robinson, he's never had a payday in the NFL. Never had a payday in the NFL. Really broke out this year, and now he's turning 30 in September. And so I don't know, because there's a glut of receivers now. There's a glut of receivers coming in. I think that market for a wide receiver sooner or later is going to deflate because all the best athletes are playing wide receiver. And it'll be interesting to see about Demarcus Robinson. I like Demarcus Robinson. I really do. But I don't want to go too far into the show, but I definitely think the Rams should draft another receiver. USA expat. Don't forget my early draft prediction. Laugh out loud. Who was that? I'm sorry, USA expat. I'm sorry. I'm having a mind freeze here. Kenneth Wright. Robinson did well. Robinson did great. And I'm a Tutu Atwell fan. And I thought Atwell was playing well this year. I like Atwell's hands. I like his speed. But you know what? Demarcus Robinson just played better. And that's it. He did. He played better. It's so funny is that, he was in Baltimore. He was one of the guys that was there when they said Lamar had no weapons, so they didn't use him. And then he was in Kansas City, and he's been to Super Bowls. And so he just never really popped. To me, he never popped until this past season with the Rams. So, yeah, I have no problem with being Demarcus Robinson back. I'd still like us to draft a wide receiver. And because I think it's important. Bill, do you think there's going to be a major trade announcement on March 15th by the Rams? I don't see it. I mean, who have they got to trade? I've made the argument, Bill, that the Rams window is open. The Super Bowl window is open, at least for 2 years. That's what I think you're going to get out of Donald, and you're going to get maybe out of Cup, and definitely out of Stafford. So who would be a big trade outside of those three at this point? I don't know what it would be. If you're hearing something, please pass it on. It would be great to know. USA Expat, if cornerback Rams like it, the quarterback the Rams like is not there at 19, they trade down. Absolutely. There's another thing there that you can't put past Les Snead. The Rams ended up what did they have? Like 9 picks, 10 picks last year going in, and they came out with 14. I don't know if they'll go as high. They've already got 11. I don't know if they'll go as high as 14 again, because there might not be roster spots for all these guys, because there's a lot of guys on this roster besides the 6, and I'm counting Davis Allen as a starter, besides the 6 that became starters. There's other guys out there they're curious in, right? They want to see another look at Ochoan Mathis. They want another look at Nick Hampton. They want another look at Jason Taylor. And so I don't know if they'll trade back too much, but I can see them trading back, at least in the first round, picking up, I have no problem with that. Drop to the back of the first round, pick up another third round pick, another first 100. Boom. I'm all in on that action. Let's see here. USA Expat. I'm sorry, Kenneth Wright. I think a pass rush would make the secondary look much better, providing we re-sign Witherspoon. I believe the Rams were 3rd to last in sacks last year. They weren't good, Chief. Yeah, they weren't good at all. And I remember we talked about that a few weeks ago, that you get that edge guy that gives that quarterback one less half second, and give the Rams a chance to get a little closer to getting home. It makes the secondary better. I'm going to ask you this. Do you think we're going to get another year out of Witherspoon? That's a great question for all Ram fans and Mr. Wright. Does anyone know, do you think you're going to get another year out of Witherspoon like we got this year, right? That we got this year? Or do we keep Witherspoon, and do you see maybe Kobe Durant returning to some promise that he had in 2022? I'm not even going to talk about Darian Kendrick because I know how folks feel about him. I got a soft spot for Darian Kendrick. And of course, there was a lot of chatter about THT, that if he wasn't so small, he wouldn't have been drafted so late, but he didn't get any real action on the field last year. But pass rush is definitely going to make the secondary better. Dano, thanks for your draft class there that you sent me. Your question today is, came across a video of the Fearsome Foursome from NFL Films. It was fantastic. This group was talented on and off the field. Can you share a memory of these guys? I'll tell you what, when things start slowing down, I'll work on a Fearsome Foursome piece, talk about how they were acquired, their history, how long they played, and how it evolved. It was a bummer. Lamar Lundy was starting to age, and then of course Rosie Greer retired after 66. He had a knee injury and I think an Achilles injury. But then you score a guy like Coy Bacon, completely lost to history, right? I'm down, dude. I'll do some work on that. You deserve it for sending me the mock draft. Bill, have the 49ers named a new defensive coordinator yet? And if not, what are they waiting for? I don't know. I did not look up 49er stuff in preparation for the show, but we heard Brandon Staley was a hot item. And I kind of love this right now where the 49ers are at. I love how they're questioning right now all their decisions in terms of the Super Bowl, right? They're allowing, I don't know if they're allowing, but the media keeps hitting that Brock Purdy somehow isn't a good enough quarterback, even though he put him ahead 16-13, 19-16, and 22-19. I've said that. But then I didn't think it was a good look the way he Shanahan fired Steve Wilkes. Wait a week, wait 2 weeks, say it's not a good fit. But so I love some of this. I think what's happening in Frisco a little bit is what we were hoping would happen if they lost the Super Bowl. Just a little bit of chaos, a little bit of uncertainty, and it's marvelous, right? It's absolutely marvelous. All right, I'm going to get on with the show here, guys. Awesome questions, and I'll take your answers anytime. All right, I'm not an expert. I think I know a lot. I know some stuff, but I won't claim I know it all. And I'm going to throw a question out to you right now. I haven't read anything regarding Loyola Marymount for training camp for the Rams. People are talking about it. I've seen some comments, and I know they've reached some academic partnership with Loyola Marymount, but I haven't seen where they're moving training camp to Loyola Marymount. And some folks are talking about that like it's a done deal. If you guys have anything on that, let me know, and we'll go from there. Talking draft now, one of the things I'm not seeing, and this kind of addresses Kenneth Wright's question, one of the things I'm not seeing, and I want to see it because if Stafford is a priority, then I'd like to see a receiver in the first 100. If the Rams have picks at 19, 52, 83, and 100, I'd like to see them draft a receiver in that group somewhere. Get your corner, get your edge, get your offensive lineman, but I'd like to see another receiver. Kupp is aging. We know that. Maybe he's not finished, but he is aging. Nakua, with the way he plays, is susceptible. And like I said about Demarcus Robinson, he turns 30. And if someone's going to offer him a little more coin at this stage of his career, the guy has to take it. So I want another receiver. And I don't want to hope that we hit a home run in the 5th round like we did last year, but I do want another receiver. And I think it's highly unlikely that Atwell will be back in the 2025 season. A reminder again, the Rams have 11 picks in this year's draft. I'll get to those questions here in a second, guys. I just want to blow through the rest of the show. Rams Wire posted their first round mock draft this morning, February 19th. And what I do here is I just make a list of who goes number 1 to the Rams, but I kind of mention names that were mentioned going to the Rams and where different mock drafts have them going. Like Bo Nix in this Rams Wire mock draft has they have Bo Nix going to the Vikings at number 11. Brock Bowers, who's mentioned to the Rams, at number 12 to Denver. Talisi Fuaga at number 13 to Las Vegas. Quinyon Mitchell, the darling of the Senior Bowl, number 15 to Indy. And then Tim Burns' favorite guy, Jackson Powers Johnson, Oregon to Pittsburgh at number 20. Troy Fontenot, Dano's guy at number 21, going to the Dolphins. Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's been likened to the Rams at number 19 quite a bit. He's going to Philly at 22. Nate Wiggins, number 26 to Tampa. And Tim Burns' guy, Cooper DeJean, number 27 to Arizona. Rams Wire has the Rams taking UCLA edge Leatu Tatu. Same thing as Daniel Jeremiah did in his mock draft in January. He looks great. He looks really great at number 19. But the question goes out, and it begs to ask, if you're going to draft an edge guy, is he going to be able to give you something? Because the Rams really need, as Kenneth Wright hit, the Rams really need somebody who's going to give them something. It can't be a year of development. I don't want Anderson's 7 sacks, right? I don't want Nolan Smith. I want somebody that's going to give me something on that edge, and not just get the quarterback, but hold the edge. And usually with edge rusher, it takes a year or two to develop a guy. And so we'll see. And again, I think a lot of us are thinking that could be something the Rams get outside of the first round and maybe get through free agency. But with that said, I've been tinkering with the Rams schedule next year. I've listed the quarterbacks they face. I've listed the teams they're facing, home and away, and the picks that these teams have. And one of the things that I wanted to think about was, who are the defensive edge guys that the Rams will be facing? There's some edge guys that don't put the fear of God in you at all. And then there's others that are, they make you call on the Lord. If you remember Geno Smith, and it wasn't an edge guy, it was Aaron Donald and Geno Smith in week 1. He saw God. If you remember, he was back to pass and Aaron Donald had a straight path at him, and you hear Geno Smith yell, "Oh my God," because he sees Aaron Donald coming at him. There are some rushers that scare you and some that don't. Rams play the 49ers twice. They got Nick Bosa. I got to be honest with you. Nick Bosa doesn't really impress me that much. I could be wrong. You guys have a different feeling about it, but he just doesn't impress me that much. And if he doesn't get to the quarterback, he says someone held him. Cardinals don't really have anybody. Zaven Collins. Seahawks got a career year out of Boye Mafe. He had 9 sacks. It'll be interesting to see how he develops, especially with the new head coach. The Bears, Montez Sweat. Now, that's a guy that you haven't faced too often, but the Rams go to Soldier Field this year. Montez Sweat had 16 sacks, and he got a big, fat contract. And so He's a guy that's kind of scary. Aiden Hutchinson in Detroit, guy that's kind of scary. Patriots have Matthew Judon, but his health, we don't know what his health is. 2 years ago, he had 17 sacks, but he got banged up this year and he was out for the year. And so we don't know what he is. The Jets, Jermaine Johnson, 11 sacks. I don't know, not too scary. Saints, Carl Granderson had a career year, 9 sacks. Again, Saints don't scare me. At home, the Rams get the Packers. Rashawn Gary had a great bounce back year. Packers are scaring me a little bit. Vikings, Daniel Hunter had 18 sacks, but there's not a real strong possibility, or there's a strong possibility he won't be back in the land of Skol, and so he could be someplace else. The Bills are coming to town with Von Miller, who had 3 tackles all year, and Greg Rousseau with 6 sacks. The Dolphins, Bradley Chubb had 13 sacks, and Jalen Phillips, before tearing his Achilles, had 7 sacks, but they're going with a new defensive coordinator, so life will be changing there in Miami, but they're coming to SoFi. Also coming to SoFi are the Eagles, and Hassan Reddick, I believe is a free agent. He had 13 sacks, but they didn't feel really impactful. And then the Raiders are coming to SoFi, and then that's Max Crosby, and we know what Max Crosby is, right? Max Crosby is dangerous, right? Okay, so let's take a look at this date in Rams history. All right. On this date in 2016, the Rams were already coming back to Los Angeles, but they were coming to Los Angeles without Chris Long, James Laurinaitis, and Jared Cook. Jared Cook, adios muchachos. I wasn't real big in Jared Cook because he giveth and he taketh away. James Laurinaitis and Chris Long struggled through those years that the Rams were just awful, but their defense was good. And before they even got to LA, they were put in the street. And Long won Super Bowls in 2016 and 2017, I think, before he retired. So congratulations to Chris Long. But James Laurinaitis, I think, was pretty much done in the NFL after that. And so you understood why the Rams moved on. Born on this day in 1952, I am going to say this name, and we probably should come up with a no-go zone. I'll let you guys take a vote on which names I should omit from mentioning publicly. But in 1952, on this day, Eddie Brown was born. If you know anything about Super Bowl 14, Eddie Brown is a name that I don't like mentioning, and he turns 72 today. And if he was still with us, Billy Waddy would be 70 today. Billy Waddy passed away at the age of 67 2 years ago. But Billy Waddy, if you remember him, out of Colorado, sometimes he fumbled the ball, sometimes he dropped the ball, but no one had speed like Billy Waddy. And for the guy that caught the pass from Ferragamo that beat the Cowboys in December of 1979, Billy Waddy will always be a hero in the Ram cave and to Ram fans everywhere. And here's the interesting part. In the summer of 76, in September, at the end of camp, the Rams had Leroy Jones. Leroy Jones was a second-round pick by the Rams in 1976. He was a professional. He actually played in Canada a little bit, left college early, but was ineligible for the NFL draft. Rams took him. He was like 6'8", 260. He was a beast in those days. But Fred Dreyer, Jack Youngblood, all those guys the Rams had on the roster, there was just nothing you were going to do with him, right? And they moved him to the Chargers, and they got a second-round pick back for him. That second-round pick was 50th overall in 1977, and it was Billy Waddy. And Billy Waddy only caught 120 passes for the Rams from 77 through 82. But the 1979 playoffs, he had the play against the Cowboys, and he had the big 50-yard catch from Ferragamo in the second half of Super Bowl 14. He caught 6 passes that postseason for 172 yards, 28.7 yards per catch. You got to love Billy Waddy. Always love Billy Waddy. And I just wanted to make sure we got that shared there. Okay, one wrap up there on Leroy Jones. Leroy Jones was part of the Rams' 1975 draft class that brought in Mike Fanning, Dennis Hara, Doug France, Monty Jackson. They drafted a center from Washington State named Jeff Reese, who never really made it for the team and was dealt for a second-round pick in 1977 that turned into Nolan Cromwell. And then, of course, in that 75 draft, they also picked up Rod Perry and Pat Hayden. Can you imagine a Rams draft where they get a Dennis Hara, Doug France, Mike Fanning, Monty Jackson, Rod Perry, Nolan Cromwell, and a backup quarterback named Pat Hayden. Can you imagine if they had a draft like that in a month or two? Man, the dynasty would be on. Okay. Quick mention here. On this date in 2012, former Ram defensive back Eric Harris passed away at the age of 56. He was acquired from the Chiefs straight up for a running back named Jarrell Thomas. Jarrell Thomas was a guy that was out of San Jose State that the Rams popped in to the lineup after Wendell Tyler was down in 1980. Lawrence McCutcheon had already been traded. Elvis Peacock was banged up. Jarrell Thomas had the game of his life on a Monday night at Anaheim against the Cowboys. And yeah, Wendell Tyler came back in 81 and 82. Eric Dickerson was drafted in 83. There was no room for Jarrell Thomas after that. But the Rams picked up a starting cornerback for him from the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, the Chiefs were desperate in 83 because Joe Delaney had just died in that tragic drowning accident near his hometown. Eric Harris played 3 seasons opposite Gary Green, another future Ram cornerback, and 4 with the Rams before he moved to free safety in 84, starting 7 games before injuring his back. But he passed away on this day in 2012. There we go. I think I got that stuff in. I think we're good. And let's see what we got here. It was a stone groove. It was a stone groove. Let's get to some more questions here before we wrap it up, guys. You guys are awesome. Tim Burns, I called that pre-Super Bowl that win or lose, Purdy won't be quarterback in Frisco in a couple of years. Grass is always greener. I like the kid. Maybe if their defense had done something this postseason, he'd have gotten a ring. He had gotten a ring. Bill, it's amazing how close the fearsome foursome were outside of football. They really cared about each other. Yeah, that was a big deal, right? Although it was kind of funny when you heard Deacon Jones say Merlin couldn't sing. I thought that was funny. Kenneth Wright, I agree. We need an instant impact guy on the edge. So, Kenneth Wright, let me ask you a question before I answer your next one. Would you consider dealing a pick or two to acquire Josh Allen from the Jacksonville Jaguars and give him his payday? Just curious to hear what you think about that, or what any of you think about that. Let's see what else we got here. Why is the Rams schedule so brutal? I thought last year's schedule was brutal, but I'm looking at this year's schedule, Kenneth, and I see the Rams winning double digit, right? I think the Rams could sweep the Cardinals and Seahawks. I can see them splitting with the 49ers. If the Bears don't get things right, which they never do, I could see that game being a win. Patriots, Jets, I see those, and Saints, I see those being wins on the road. I see a loss to the Lions because they're going to be so amped up there in Detroit. The Packers are a dangerous game. The Vikings, the Bills, I think they're beatable. The Eagles, I feel, are beatable. The Raiders, I feel, are beatable. Now, the Rams won't be perfect, but I could see easily double-digit wins, possibly 12 wins if things go right for this team next year. That Aaron Donald to Geno Smith was hilarious. It was, wasn't it? It was. I was Kenneth Wright that said that. Tim Burns, what do we know about Schalise and the OC from the Iowa State? I hope he helps us. I don't know anything about him. I was holding back. Everyone wants a spot on Sean McVay's staff. Everyone wants a spot because they know what it means to be on Sean McVay's staff. His coaching tree is a powerful, strong oak, and you have to wonder. Everyone wants to be on there, so I bet he's good, and then we'll see how he progresses as time goes on, right? LaFleur will probably get a coaching job next year if the Rams have a deep playoff run. Dano dodged a bullet by not signing Von Miller. Amen. Preach on that one. That was a ridiculous contract the Bills got for him. That's a case in football. The Bills' contract to Von Miller was blank around and find out, and they did. I think what the Rams were initially offering him made sense, but they made a mistake. The Bills just overbid. I think they really thought he could push them through. And if you remember, Von Miller did not catch fire until like the last game of the season and then through the playoffs. But that first month and a half he was with the Rams, he didn't do a whole lot. But then he caught fire. And I appreciate Von Miller for one thing. He was the guy that told Aaron Donald he needed to be more vocal And so I respect Von Miller, but I wouldn't have given him that dough. Huge bullet dodged. Tim Burns agreed, Dano. Vaughn would have been a money nightmare. Amen. USA expat. Fred, light my hair on fire, Dreyer. Love Fred Dreyer. Doesn't get enough respect. I think his acting career kind of overshadows everything that he did, but he was a great performer for the Rams. Greg Scott, you mentioned it. Bingo. There you go. That was something I made a note of that I missed. When I talked about the 1975 draft, that was a Don Klosterman special. Greg Scott, thank you for sharing that. I made a note right when I was saying it. I didn't mention Don Klosterman. He was. Jarrell Thomas, big man, big speed. Yeah, he had a nice little 15 minutes there with the Rams, and then they turned him into a starting cornerback with Eric Harris. So good job. USA expat, Carl Eckern, another San Jose State guy. Yeah, Carl Eckern. And you know what? I think Cody Jones was San Jose State too. Rams had a little pipeline there going. Greg Scott, I met Eric Dickerson, and he remembers Jarrell, but had lost contact with him. And I think they would have been in the same camp together in 1983 before he was traded. AMS, regards to this is the Josh Allen. Is this the Josh Allen? Putting a couple draft picks on the table to get Josh Allen from Jacksonville. I'm going to say Bill's saying yes, yes, yes. USA expat is saying yes, yes, yes. Greg Scott, Iowa State coach, was wide receiver coach when Brock Purdy was there. Okay, that's the Schlise guy that Tim Burns mentioned. Bill, I'd give 2 firsts and a third and 2 thirds for Allen. I definitely give 2 firsts. I would. I'd give him 2 firsts because I don't know if you're going to find anything better. Kenneth Wright, I'd gladly trade 2 picks for Allen or the guy from Minnesota. Keith, I like Allen, but my one question about Danielle Hunter is that he is hitting 30. He's hitting 30, and he had 18 sacks, and he's great. I don't know if I'd give 2 picks for him because of his age, but I think it would be I got no problem with that. And again, it's just, how do the Rams evaluate Witherspoon? Are they going to re-sign him? The market value for Witherspoon is listed at 2 years, 20 mil. So that's 10 rocks per year. Kenneth Wright, yeah, Hunter was drafted, I think, in 2015. If I'm wrong, look it up and correct me. But I happened to see that in prepping for today. And I don't know if you still want to give 2 number ones for a guy that came into the league back in 2015. Seems like yesterday, but that's literally almost 10 seasons ago now. Wow. All right, guys, I think we're there. I think we got it in. Guys, thank you so much for clicking on. I hate leaving with an audience, but if you guys could just hit the subscribe button, if you could hit the share this around, and we can go from there and build from there. Just keep our footprint here. Check us out on Spotify, and we'll see. We're trying to build our footprint there. Our Spotify numbers are not very good. Okay, Bill, nice work there, Bill. I think Hunter is a free agent. We don't have to trade for him. Oh, if he's a free agent, well, that changes everything, right? That changes everything. Just how much do you want to break the bank? Because I think Kevin Dodson's going to cost some serious rocks to keep him. All right, guys, I got to roll. Family needs me. Rain's falling. God bless. We will see you on Wednesday.